Yes, so 16 years for me involved with biochar. 40 years since I had an interest in Tasmania. 36 years since we moved here as a family. We live in West Timor in Rosevears. And my background is in holistic forest management and training. So I used to run a training center for forestry workers that did a 3-year apprenticeship in Germany. Did that for nearly 7 years before we moved here. I was for just under 2 years a training development officer for the forest industry in Launceston, mainly involved with plantations. But I would love to talk about holistic landscape management. So why we are here on the East Timor is that it just lends itself to this Australia First project. We would possibly be the 101 project if you combine it with the European initiative. The EU has currently a program which is incredibly well funded to establish 100 living labs and lighthouse projects by 2030. So you will hear that from Adam O'Toole later on, what that is about and how that relates to what we're going to do. Today is just a start for us to come together, and it will require collaboration, volunteering, commercial input. There's lots of business to be done. There's lots of training to be had. There's lots of education to be shared. There is lots of information to gather, but you will be surprised how much information is already out there. So before I go into the biochar, I need to say that what we're going to do is we're going to build a healthy economy from the bottom up, simple as that. And because we're at the bottom of the catchment here, where the Timor runs into the Bass Strait, it's a perfect place to think about the whole catchment. Where does it all come from? So there's a whole range of issues. Another basic principle in that 1 minute, we strive for relationships. So we are not after trying to flog a particular technology. I'm not here to just push a particular product or product range. We want to work it in a circular economy, but even beyond that.
What is biochar, Frank?
Okay, so biochar is a form, the word of biology. You all went to school and you had biology, life science. So the Greek word bios is underpinning what bio actually means. And so it's not a fancy word. And so here we've got a matchstick, and that's where it all begins. It's actually a single flame. And when you look at that flame, we all know the brown matchstick, and that contains so-called volatiles. And pyrolysis is the decomposition of material from heat. Pyro means fire. So if you have got any questions, please feel to interrupt and ask straight on the spot. We have nothing to hide. And you can see here, don't move that now, you can see how that square stick shrivels. But it's a single flame, and the color in the flame indicates to us what is actually going on. So where it's nearly clear, where the arrow of pyrolysis finishes, it's not white. There's no oxygen. There's no air. The air has already been burned above it. And so this cannot turn into white ash. That's why every matchstick, every single matchstick, never turns white, because you haven't actually burned the carbon. You have only burned the volatiles that's in the wood. And that relates to the work that we are doing. Now, we're also not just talking about sort of black magic. People could say, oh yeah, everybody talks about biochar now, and this is the one and only, but it's not. So I related this a few years ago to, it's not one, but it's part of a whole. So even if we are producing food, when we grow food in our garden or on a farm, alone, the beans alone, or the potato alone, or the meat alone, is not what we're after. We need a healthy meal, and that's what animals need, not just humans. That was a soil microbiology need, and it's a combination of preparation and ingredients. Yep. So Terra Preta. I don't know how many people are familiar with what Terra Preta means. Is there anybody who doesn't know what Terra Preta means? No hands. I'd still say it. Terra means land, Preta is black in the Portuguese language. So black soils, black soils. So Terra, Preta, black soils. And so what happens? Some 500 years ago, when the Spanish went down the Amazon River Delta, they came across the El Dorado, the cities of gold, or the city of gold, and they thought, unbelievable, this culture. They were attacked and by the natives, and they had whole cities there. And then nowadays we know what a pandemic is. You know, after the Spanish went through that Amazon area, a massive pandemic hit that region, which inhabited about 5 to 6 million people, the size of France. I learned about the Terra Preta story in 2004. It's a while ago now. I got very excited because it was the most fertile soil on Earth, which had not been fertilized for around 500 years. What makes it possible? Just look at the fungi here. A little mushroom has what is the mycelium, the root system of a fungi, wrapped around this piece of char on the left-hand side. Why is that so? Because the char is incredibly porous. It's a sponge. It's a sponge that doesn't rot, that does not decay. It hangs around, it's stable. So your single matchstick, if you left that in the grass or you throw it in the garden or in the soil, it will be eaten up by fungi and by bacteria and microbial activity. As soon as you burnt that piece, as soon as the volatiles have left the matchstick and it has shriveled, it suddenly is highly porous but incredibly stable. So you will find the char particles thousands of years later. So the Terra Preta soils, the Amazonian black soils, are up to 2 meters thick, full of bones and other stuff, ornaments. So there was lots of work going on. There's videos on websites. There's heaps of 24,000 research papers on biochar in the English language alone.